Hey friends, this is the Mrs. Wolfie from our Half Acre Homestead, and today we're canning and dehydrating squash and pumpkin. Now I've got, these are the neeps I bought. I've got buttercup, I've got pie pumpkins, I've got a butternut. So rather than like opening them all up and hollowing them out, I'm washing them off and I'm just cutting them into slices, and I'm going to go sit down in front of the TV and seed and peel and dice those, and then maybe even save some seeds. See? Really, the only reason... Are you thirsty, Gracie? The only reason to hollow out the pumpkins is if you're going to make jack-o'-lanterns, right? But we're not. Oh, look at those beautiful seeds. I'm going to save these. These are all heirloom plants, so I'm going to save some of these over here. So here are the butternut squash that and the pumpkins that Raph Jolie brought me. And I've got these all hollowed out. They've been washed. And they're put on this tray, and they're going to go into the oven to slow roast for about an hour, maybe two, at about 250 degrees. These are going to be rinsed, and then blanched, and then canned. Yep, going to have a lot of pumpkin and squash this winter. I've already taken a load of this stuff out to my chickens. I'm going to take these out to the turkeys. Okay, so our pumpkin and squash has been washed and rinsed. I have a half a stock pot of water coming up to a boil, and my canner with the required amount of water in the bottom. I'm going to put a splash of white vinegar in there to keep my jars from clouding. I have 12 jars all washed and ready to go. Now, even when I put them through the dishwasher, I always hand wash my jars, folks. And there's our lids, and yes, some of them are the dollar store lids, fingers crossed. And pickling salt. Thank you, Raph, for the squash and the pumpkins and the pickling salt. Alrighty, our water is just about to a boil, so I'm going to start putting in our squash and our pumpkin. Be very careful, folks. Alright, now I'm just going to put a lid on there. I'm going to bring these up to a boil, and I'm going to boil them for 2 minutes. Okay, I've got my water on to boil here. And I don't reuse the squash water just because I just like using fresh boiling water. That's all. You can if you want. Now I've got 12 jars here washed. I'm going to start loading these jars up with the squash and the salt until my water comes to a boil. Now I cut my pumpkin and squash into, like, I don't know, 2-inch cubes. You want them about 1 inch from the top of the jar. And normally I would fill these and do them individually but my water's not boiled yet, so we're just going to start filling these. I'm going to try and get as much of a nice mix between the buttercup and the pumpkin itself, because the buttercup has a nicer color. I don't mash them down or anything like that, because one of these jars, once it's strained, does a pie. And I'm going to show you later on, probably for Thanksgiving, how I make squash for the dinner table, pumpkin and squash for the dinner table, with my canned and powdered squash. Gracie, what are you whining about? Nobody's going to get anybody right now.
Alright.
Yeah?
That was me getting up.
That wasn't Gracie whining?
That was
Oh my goodness. You're starting to make old man sounds.
old man sound.
Now I've got a few of these pieces left, and I'm just going to drop them wherever I see room in some jars here. Alright, so here we go. Fill it up to 1 inch from the top with your boiling water. Always, always, always debubble. Always, always wipe your rim and your threads with a clean damp paper towel, and on goes a hot lid. And into the canner that goes. Remember, these already have salt in them. I always go a little above the inch mark when I'm putting the water in. Why? Because as soon as I debubble, the water kind of goes down a bit, right? Okay, on goes our lid. And as soon as this begins to spout a steady stream of steam, we will vent it for 10 minutes. Please don't skip the venting part. What happens when you vent a steady stream of steam is it pushes the air out of the canner so that when you put the weight on, it gets a proper vacuum seal and then it can cook properly. Please don't skip that step. We have taken our pumpkin and squash out of the oven, and as you can see, it's ready. I'm just going to let it cool down a little bit though before I try and handle them to scoop them out. Now, this is about all this is going to hold. You've heard me say when you are pureeing pumpkin and squash for dehydrating to add water, and I mean at least double it with water. Why? Because otherwise it won't be, let me show you, it won't be thin enough to dehydrate properly. You really need the water to break up all the fiber. And it's just a thing you want to do by eye almost, right? It's got to be pourable, but not spreadable, if you know what I mean. You don't want to be able to have to spread it with a spatula. It's too thick. You want to be able to pour it right onto your fruit leather trays. All right, so when I have this pureed, I will meet you out in the porch. Okay, here we are out in the porch with our pureed pumpkin. Now, I've got these together with fruit leather trays, and this is the way you want your pumpkin, like this, pourable. But see how it pours? This will make it so much easier, and you want to be able to just boop, 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 boop. Yes, I have skins in here. Alright, I'm going to go in and puree up a bit more, because I have 3 more of these trays to work with. So when that's ready, I'll be back. And then this goes on the fruit and vegetable setting. You can actually make it even higher because this is actually already cooked. So I'm going to set this at 145 degrees, and I'll probably rotate these trays at least once between now and tomorrow night. Alrighty, it's been about 24 hours, and I did rotate it last night before I went to bed. And this is what it looks like, and I'm hoping some of this isn't too thick. Alright, but I'm going to move it over here. I'm going to move it over here, and then we're going to start to grind. I have the, oh, some of this is stuck. I had the parchment paper down here, just in case some of it falls, you know. Now let's just see how this grinds. The thinner is better. More liquidy, the better it grinds, but we'll see. I may have pureed this just enough. Here we go. It's awful dry. I'm going to add more because it helps. I may have to sift this, folks, because I may have, see, this is what I mean. People wonder why I add water, but the more water you add, the thinner you can pour it, and then the better it grinds. Does that make sense? All right, so when I have all of these trays of pumpkin and squash ground, I'll show you how much I got. Okay, here's what I got out of that box of pumpkin and squash. I got 12 jars of canned pie pumpkin and buttercup squash. And as you can see, my lids are all still popped down. These are the two Bernardins. This one isn't. Why? Because that's our pumpkin powder. And there is about 1.5 cups of pumpkin powder in there, which means that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 6 pumpkin pies in there, folks. This is the Mrs. Wolfie from our half-acre homestead saying, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Today it's turnips and carrots. I'll get there. Take care. God bless.